Last month I manifested $22,000, and without this book from Dr. Joe Dispenza, this would have been completely impossible. And that's why in today's video I reveal the 5 principles from Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, that made me so good at manifesting money that $22,000 is just a normal month for me. The new self I created and how I was able to really change my reality from being broke and struggling to being wealthy and abundant. And the #1 mistake that keeps millions of people stuck in realities they hate, and the truth that you must accept in order to 10x or even 20x your income. And keep in mind that each of the 5 principles that I share with you in this video are equally important, so make sure that you don't miss out on one of them. Now, what if I told you that my old self was a pain in the butt and even the universe was at some point fed up with my shenanigans?
He really was a pain in my universal butt.
Yes, I used to be somebody else. I was still Sebastian, but a different version of me. Before my spiritual awakening in the year 2020, and before I discovered the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza, before I went to my first of now already 3 week-long advanced retreats from Joe Dispenza, I was a very negative person. I was full of anger, full of hate, full of resentment, and I was living my life in a consistent state of stress. And we both have to admit that these are not very abundant qualities. After first having read Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, You're the Placebo, I wanted to experience change so much, but it wasn't until I opened this book that I realized that nothing will change in my life until I change, and I had to be ready for change. So how was I able to go from being a struggling entrepreneur who was making less than $1,000 a month for almost a decade to then allowing myself to step into a completely new energy and to climb the ladder of financial success to a point where I'm now easily making more than $20,000 a month? Well, it worked like this. The reason why the universe provided me with all the ideas and insights to create these new businesses and to turn them into huge successes is because I reinvented myself. In Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Joe Dispenza reminds us that if we want to experience a new outcome, we have to reinvent a new self. Which meant that if I wanted to go from struggling, from being broke to being abundant, I had to invent and then step into my new abundant self. And this leads us to the first principle that I want to share with you, and that's to reinvent your new self. But the question is, how do you do it? In order to answer this question for you and in order to give you practical guidance, I now want to share the exact steps that I used in order to invent my new self, in order to completely reinvent myself from the struggling self to the abundant self. And we start with step #1. Define the values and qualities that your abundant self has. My abundant self has qualities and values such as discipline, creativity, and commitment. Step #2, write down 1 to 3 thoughts that you want to think throughout the day. Thoughts that are in alignment with your new abundant self. For example, I am worthy of success, or I am rich and wealthy, and then go on a strict mental diet. Now, what thoughts does your abundant self think throughout the day? I invite you to let me know in the comments below. Step #3, stand in front of a mirror and stand like the abundant self. Walk like the abundant self. You can also dress like the abundant self. Express your abundance, your new self with your body. Step #4, step out of your comfort zone and immerse yourself in environments that are in alignment with abundance. You might not be able to afford a business class flight right now, but you are sure able to go into a 5-star hotel, to sit in the lobby and to just order a water, or to go to a more upscale restaurant. And even if you have to order the French fries, that's okay, but soak in the energy, because always keep in mind, if you feel out of place in environments environments that represent abundance, wealth, and money, the universe cannot provide you with the abundance that you want because you are not an energetic match to it. Otherwise, you would feel completely comfortable in these environments. And Neville Goddard also talks about this in The Power of Awareness. To reach a higher level of being, you must assume a higher concept of yourself. You are free to choose the concept you will accept of yourself. Therefore, you possess the power of intervention, the power which enables you to alter the course of your future. And in week number 3 of my 8-week one-on-one coaching program, the Abundance Reality Shift Coaching Program, I will guide you through this process of stepping into your new abundant self in way more detail, and we will also practice being your new abundant self with method acting techniques so that you can truly embody your new abundant self. Now, after having successfully reinvented a new self, there's one step that most people are not willing to take, and that's why they never experience the abundance they truly want. And right after I reinvented my new self, the universe looked at me with anticipation and said,
Now what? What are you going to do now?
Then I had a look at the list of all the values and the qualities I had written down, and I remembered all the times I had practiced my abundant walk in front of the mirror and standing like the abundant self, but then I had a light bulb moment.
Oh.
It's one thing to look at your list of values and qualities every day, but it's a completely different story to live by these values every day. And of course, it's great to practice being the abundant self, dressing like the abundant self, walking and standing like the abundant self in front of the mirror. But when will you do it in your life, every day, all the time? That's when I remembered what I read in Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Because in his book, he reminds us that in order to change, we have to act greater than the old familiar feelings of the old self. And this leads us to principle number 2. Act and react in alignment with your new self. And this means that it's not just about knowing who your new self is. It's about acting like the new self every day. It's about the becoming process. That's what leads to the change that allows you to manifest your wildest dreams.
Yes, your wildest dreams. Wink, wink.
The universe might have some naughty thoughts right now, but you should only have one thought in this moment, and that's the following one. How can I act greater than the old self? That's why I now invite you to have a look at the following practical guide that helped me to act like my abundant self. Ask yourself every day how your abundant self would react and act in certain situations in comparison to your old self, which might still be your current self, but very soon it will be your old self. To give you an example, your old self might be afraid of doing sales calls, but if you then ask yourself, what would my abundant self do in this moment, you have to come to the conclusion that your abundant self would be confident before, during, and after a sales call. And then every day you mimic the behavior of your abundant self a little bit more, which means that every day you step into this new self more and more. Exercise number 2. Your familiar feelings might tell you that the previously described sales call, or starting your own business, or traveling the world is so scary. But then you have to ask yourself, what would my abundant self do, and how would my abundant self feel about these actions? Your abundant self would feel completely different emotions, and that's why I invite you to write down the emotions that your abundant self would feel to the things that you're doing in your life already and also the things that you want to do in your abundant future, and write them down on a piece of paper and then practice every day what these emotions would feel like. And the more you do that with your eyes closed, the more you will be able to feel them with your eyes open while you go through the day. Exercise number 3. Create a list of all the habits that your abundant self would follow. So for example, meditating 30 minutes every day or doing yoga 3 times a week, whatever it might be for you. Make a list of these habits, and you can also gain inspiration by, for example, Googling the habits of successful people, the habits of famous entrepreneurs, and you then follow these habits every day. And by doing that, you are embodying your new self, your abundant self, and that's the becoming process. But if you don't make this one important realization, nothing in your life will change. I had my spiritual awakening at the age of 30, and before that, I was struggling. I was barely making $1,000 every month as an entrepreneur for almost a decade. Then when I started manifesting and meditating, I was able to easily triple my income to $3,000 a month, which for me back then was absolutely insane. But I didn't stop there. I then continued to climb the ladder of manifestation success and the ladder of abundance, and I was then able to double my income again. Then at some point I reached $10,000 a month. Then at some point I reached $20,000 a month. And my abundance went up, 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 up. And here's why this happened. Throughout this time, I continuously stretched my imagination and expanded my money consciousness. Over time, manifesting larger and larger amounts of money became easy. But let's be real, in my 20s when I was struggling and when I was getting one food poisoning after another from eating cheap street food, I didn't say to myself, I don't want to have any money, I don't want to be rich. Of course not. I wanted to be rich, I wanted to be wealthy. But with my energy, I was projecting, I don't want any money, and the universe agrees with that.
What shall I say? That was the signal you were sending out?
And that's exactly why the numbers in my bank account stayed the same. In fact, in his book Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Joe Dispenza reminds us that the quantum field does not respond to what we want. The quantum field only responds to who we are. And this leads us to principle number 3. Being always overpowers wanting. No matter how much you want something, if you don't think, feel and act in alignment with it, the manifestation cannot come to you. And that's because wanting is living in separation. Being is living in alignment. Wanting is looking at your manifestation from a distance. Being is living, breathing, and experiencing your manifestation in the now. And that's why I invite you to ask yourself the following life-changing question multiple times a day. Am I currently in a state of wanting, or am I that which I want to manifest? Neville Goddard expressed it with the following words in Your Faith is Your Fortune. Never claim I shall be that. Let all claims from now on be, I am that I am. But in order to enter this state of being, you have to speak the language of the subconscious mind. The next principle I'm about to share with you has the power to completely debunk one of the biggest manifestation myths that unfortunately millions of people believe. And yes, I read all of Dr. Joe Dispenza's books, even Evolve Your Brain. And yes, Evolve Your Brain definitely evolved my brain, but it also at times made my brain spin. But no matter if we have a look at You Are the Placebo, or Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, or Becoming Supernatural, or Evolve Your Brain, I very quickly realized that the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza cannot be compared with your typical self-improvement and personal development advice. And I always have to laugh whenever somebody says, those Joe Dispenza retreats, they are just feel-good retreats. Even the universe has to laugh about this.
Excuse me.
I already went to 3 of his week-long advanced retreats, and I can confidently say that it's not about positive thinking, it's about so much more. But unfortunately, a lot of people who are manifesting or just starting to manifest and get comfortable with the idea that they are the creators of their life, they believe that manifesting is all about positive thinking. But in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Dr. Joe Dispenza reminds us that conscious positive thinking cannot compete with subconscious negative feeling. And this leads us to principle number 4. Your subconscious feelings are more powerful than your conscious thoughts. Does that mean that you should now allow yourself to run around all day like this?
My life sucks. This is horrible. Screw this.
Of course not, because that doesn't mean that your conscious thoughts are not important. It simply means that your subconscious feelings are more important than your conscious thoughts, which means that your conscious thoughts still matter. So we could say that in a hierarchy, your subconscious feelings are more important than your conscious thoughts, and your conscious thoughts are of course more important than your T-Rex hands. Every thought sends a signal out into the field, but according to the Heart Math Institute, the magnetic field of the heart is up to 100 times stronger than the magnetic field of the brain. So your heart, which stands for your subconscious feelings, is more powerful than your brain, which stands for your conscious thoughts. And that's exactly why the magnetic field of my heart can be detected up to 3 feet away from my body, while my brain is only filled with an endless rerun of Family Guy and South Park episodes. Now, what does that mean for your ability to generate large sums of money and to attract your abundant future? It means that if you only repeat thoughts such as I am rich, I am wealthy, I am abundant, without ever adding an emotional charge, you will most likely not arrive at your desired destination, which is the materialization of your manifestation. And that's why I invite you to incorporate the following practical steps into your life. Step number 1, assign an emotion to each thought that you consciously think throughout the day. So you can look at your list of affirmations and behind every affirmation write one emotion that is in perfect alignment with this affirmation, and always remember, every affirmation is a thought and every thought is an affirmation, which means every thought that you think throughout the day, if you're consciously aware of it or not, affirms a certain state in your mind and in your body. And in the same way, every affirmation that you consciously repeat is a thought that you feed your conscious mind. And when you then add the emotional charge, by assigning that emotion to the affirmation and by feeling yourself into it, you can then allow this thought to not just stay in your conscious mind, but to actually sink through and then arrive at your subconscious mind. Step number 2, practice the feeling more than you practice the speaking. So many people, when they repeat their affirmations, they repeat them over and over again. I'm wealthy, I'm healthy, I'm rich, I'm this, I'm that, but they don't take the equal amount of time or even more time when it comes to feeling these thoughts. Because remember, the subconscious feeling is more powerful than the conscious thought. And step number 3, immerse yourself into a deep meditation every day in which you allow yourself to fully experience your abundant future. And the more you do that, the more real it feels, and the more you allow your subconscious mind, and therefore also by sending the signal out into the field, the universe, to understand that this is now your reality and that you are ready for the materialization of this reality in your physical reality. And here you might want to practice with the more than 60 guided meditations and guided hypnosis files that you get as a free bonus for joining my audio program, the 11 Days to Manifestation Mastery program, which you can find out more about by clicking on the second link in the description or by going to affirmationtomanifestation.com/mastery. But if you continue to look at your external world, you will continue to stay trapped in a reality that you want to change so badly. And this leads me to one of the most powerful and most dangerous forms of conditioning that we as human beings, of course not everybody, but most of us, have experienced all our lives. Because up until my spiritual awakening, up until the year 2020, when my body broke down and I then discovered the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza, I never questioned the following paradigm. And that's that we only experience an emotion when something in our external world happens or changes. And not once did I ask myself, hey, why don't I simply create the emotions that I want to feel at any time I want to create them?
Mind-blowing.
In Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Dr. Joe Dispenza shares with us that we don't need the external world to feel an emotion. Because here's the truth. You can decide at any moment in time to feel any emotion you want, no matter if you want to feel grateful, free, abundant, or joyful. You just have to close your eyes, go within, and feel. And this leads us to principle number 5. Stop waiting for the external world to give you permission to feel the emotions of your future. And the more you go within, the more you practice feeling the emotions of your future by asking yourself, what would gratitude feel like? Or how would I feel if I was grateful? Or if in the beginning that is too personal for you and you want to take one step back to then take 2 steps forwards, you can also simply ask yourself, how would somebody feel if they were grateful? And then you can slowly start feeling these emotions until you can then say, how would I feel if I was grateful? And at some point you simply reach the state of, how does gratitude feel like for me? What does it feel like for me? And you then say, hey, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this because I practice the emotion all the time. And the more you practice immersing yourself into a different emotional state, at some point you will be so good at it that you can do it with your eyes open, and then you walk through the day in this state of gratitude, in this state of joy, in this state of freedom, in this state of pure abundance. And by doing that, you draw the experience back to you, and then you can enjoy your abundant dream life in your physical reality. Now I want to ask you, are you ready to manifest this dream life? Are you ready to experience a life full of abundance? Then I invite you to go to affirmationtomanifestation.com/abundance or to click on the first link in the description to find out more about my 8-week one-on-one coaching program that I specifically created for people who want to reach a higher level of abundance, a higher level of wealth, and who want to master the art of manifesting money. So click on the first link in the description to find out more. Now you know how I manifested $22,000 last month with these 5 principles from Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. But as somebody who has read all his books, studied his work, and already went to 3-week-long advanced retreats, I can confidently say that in order to reach my net worth of more than $500,000, there were also other techniques and other principles that I used. So if you're ready to find out how I manifested $500,000 with Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations and teachings, you can watch this video next.